What's up, everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. And big surprise, we got more Activision Blizzard news, because why not? I guess this is what December is really all about, the time for joyous bickering of regulations. There's a few different things happening here, though, including an incredibly enticing offer from Microsoft to Sony regarding Call of Duty. Now, you would think that this would be enough for Sony to accept, but well, we'll get into that a little bit later on today, as well as Microsoft revealing some information that paints the FTC in a bad light. Now, there's already questions on whether or not they actually have a legitimate case against Microsoft, or if it's just the FTC trying to make a political point by turning this acquisition into a chance for them to make an example of these big tech mergers. Well, thanks to some new information directly from Microsoft themselves, I'd say that this is a bad look for the FTC. Of course, though, as always, in my never-ending goal to bring you all lots of daily news, we do have other things to cover as well, so yeah, let's just go and jump right into it, starting off with Sonic Frontiers. Really, the thing about this game is that I'd say since this game was first announced, you kind of noticed that there was a lot more anticipation, a lot more curiosity for this particular entry than what we've seen for the 3D Sonic franchise in years. I can't remember the last time a 3D Sonic game has generated this much excitement. Of course, they made a big transition over to a more open world approach, and people are very interested in that. But can this change bring Sonic back to the forefront? Can it revitalize and rejuvenate the 3D Sonic game series? And well, based off of its first month results, it very much has. Sega just revealed that for its first month alone, it's already sold 2.5 million units worldwide. Now, to be fair, I do understand that this game was discounted throughout the month and everything, but even then, I think this is still very impressive. And to just kind of put things into perspective, one of the more successful 3D Sonic games as of recent was Sonic Generations, that released back in November of 2011. That went on to sell 1.85 million units within its first 6 months. So Sonic Frontiers has already eclipsed that number in one single month. Yeah, to just kind of fit the reputation for Sonic, this is a very fast start, and I think it also answers an important question as well. We've seen fans just kind of rave about how fun this game is, but now on top of that, we're also seeing it have success in the wild. So I think with all of that in mind, the 3D Sonic franchise has a very bright future ahead of it. Now, speaking of a bright future, we need to talk about the Bayonetta series, because it sounds like it has a long, and I mean a long-lasting future. They just released Bayonetta 3 just barely over a month ago. There's also Bayonetta Origins coming sometime here soon, but it sounds like this is really just the beginning for the franchise. This is coming from Platinum Games Vice President Hideki Kamiya, which said this: "I personally can't conceive the Bayonetta series ever ending. I want to make a Bayonetta 4 and Bayonetta 5, and I intend on pitching them to the company. We often talk internally about how we can make 9 of them." Now, 9 Bayonetta games? That sounds like decades worth of a commitment. If you kind of think about it, the original Bayonetta released back in 2009, so it took them 13 years to get through 3 games. So at the rate that they're kind of going, we might be getting a new Bayonetta game 26 years from now. Of course, that's if any of this even holds up. Who knows what will actually happen. But if we look at the more immediate part of the story, Platinum Games is absolutely interested in giving fans more Bayonetta games. And I personally mark that as exciting news. I do consider Bayonetta among the Pantheon greats when it comes to the hack and slash genre. I do think it's that good. So I think that it's fantastic knowing that the third entry is not the final part here. It, however, will be interesting to see if Nintendo continues to publish the Bayonetta series from this point forward. I think that is an interesting question to kind of bring up, because Nintendo, as far as I'm aware, doesn't actually own this IP. They have published the last 2 games, though, and I think that has been a good relationship for the two. While Bayonetta doesn't go on to sell like 10 plus million units or anything like that, it, however, does review very well, and it also adds just a little bit more diversity to Nintendo's library. So I imagine that they will continue to work together going forward, but either way, one way or the other, it absolutely does look like there is more Bayonetta in the future. Next up here, let's go and talk about Armored Core 6. This is a long-running series and everything, but with no gameplay shown as of yet, there has been some questions online. There's a lot that's happened since the release of Armored Core 5. That game released back in 2012, and since then, From Software has had a lot of success with the Soulsborne series. I mean, if you think about it, they've released Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne, Sekiro, and most recently, with their biggest success, Elden Ring. So with all that in mind, Miyazaki in an interview with IGN was asked if Armored Core 6 would be closer to the Soulsborne games than the series has been in the past. And here's his response to that. No, we've not been making a conscious effort to try to direct it towards more Soulsborne-type gameplay. First of all, let me just make that clear. The essential direction of Armored Core 6 was to go back and take a look at the core concept of Armored Core and what made that series special. So we wanted to take the assembly aspect, assembling and customizing your own mech, your AC, and then being able to exact a high level of control over the assembled mech. So we wanted to take those two core concepts and re-examine those in our modern environment. So there you go. He was quick to shut that speculation down while also ensuring that fans of the series should be excited for what they already know and love, more or less just a more modern take on that series. Now, with all that said and everything, he did later on say that they are focusing on its single player and story more than past entries, but he did note that more multiplayer details will be out at a later date. All in all, though, I kind of like what he's saying here. As much as I personally love the Soulsborne series myself, I also want to see what all From Software has learned over the past decade and see how they can incorporate all of that into a completely different style of game. If anything, I think with the rise in popularity that they've received, there's suddenly a lot more eyes on Armored Core 6, and I think that they have a real opportunity to show that they can make something besides just the Soulsborne games. I do hope we get a gameplay reveal for this game sometime here soon, though. Alright, so let's just go ahead and talk about this Activision Blizzard situation, though, as two different things are currently happening. Now, first, we're going to talk about Sony, because it's pretty well known that they've had some issues with this Microsoft buyout. They've complained to pretty much anybody that's willing to listen to them, which, we'll come back to that here in just a moment. But one of the primary reasons for their complaints, or at least what they claim, is that they're concerned Microsoft will eventually foreclose Call of Duty. Well, as we've seen recently, Microsoft, they've tried to alleviate any type of concern by offering a 10-year contract. They offered this to Nintendo, which gracefully agreed. They offered this to Valve, which they declined because they said that Microsoft will stay true to their word. And of course, they also offered this to Sony as well. Now, that's already a very generous offer in its own. But even then, this is yet to sway Sony's stance. What we didn't know at the time, though, is what Microsoft is offering to Sony is even more generous than what we already knew. This is because a new report by Bloomberg claims that not only is Microsoft offering Sony a 10-year contract, but it also includes the rights to offer Call of Duty on its PlayStation Plus subscription service. Now that is an absolutely massive offer that really puts to rest any type of concern that these regulators might have. You have to remember that they're not just looking at the console side of the business, but they're also looking at subscription services. This is a concern for these regulators. They are looking at Xbox Game Pass compared to what PlayStation has to offer. Now, Microsoft continues to reiterate that Sony just doesn't try as hard, which that's technically true, but whatever the case may be, this is something that regulators are looking at. So ultimately, what Microsoft is trying to do here is that they want to show that they're giving Sony a fair chance to compete in subscriptions by allowing them to include Call of Duty. Now, to be fair, we don't know the exact details of this offer and what all it entails, but the point still stands. By allowing Sony to include Call of Duty into PlayStation Plus, it just removes another argument that could pose problems in the regulation process. The issue here, though, and this really should come as absolutely zero surprise, Sony refuses to accept this offer. Again, nobody should be surprised by this. And I think most of us already kind of knew this already, but Sony's complaints are not about Call of Duty. It's just not. They're being disingenuous, and that's all there is to it. Microsoft could offer Sony Call of Duty for 50 years with the inclusion of subscription availability, and they would still decline. Sony's complaints were never about Call of Duty. It's just an excuse to have regulators shut this acquisition down, and there's nothing more to it than that. If anything, I think that this is just more evidence of that fact. Now, Microsoft, though, they can show this type of stuff in court and say, hey, we've tried to work out a contract that will work for everybody, and that could maybe help out their case in the long run, especially when you consider what the FTC is doing. This is going to take us over to our next topic. Now, this is where things get even crazier. I mean, you kind of expect Sony to be the way they are because it impacts their business, but when it comes to regulators, you expect there to be a more professional environment. But, well, the FTC, they're doing their own thing. So what's happening here is that we know Microsoft is trying to work with regulators, but it sounds like when it comes to the FTC, they're not trying to work with Microsoft at all. This is coming from Microsoft's president, Brad Smith, and he revealed something that is quite shocking to this case. Yeah, let's just go and check out what he said here. The thing that probably disappoints me is not that we will have to present this case to a judge in court, because this is a case in which I have great confidence. I'm disappointed that the FTC didn't give us the opportunity to even sit down with the staff, to even talk about our proposal, to even see if there was a solution there. Yeah, on his channel for several weeks, or even really months of speculation that Microsoft would sit down with regulators like the FTC and work on concessions, because to be direct here, this is not a clear-cut win case for these regulators. In fact, Microsoft has more than just a strong case that could hold up in court. So everybody thought that they would just try to work together if there were any concerns at all. But the FTC, as you can see here, they didn't even do that. And I'd say that that is a bad look for the FTC. We already know for a fact that under Lina Khan's leadership, the FTC is attempting to be more aggressive on these big tech mergers. We all know this. It is now their mission to be aggressive, and because of that, they have made some questionable decisions under her leadership. They've already lost several cases in court under Lina Khan's decision-making, as it appears that they're looking to make an example of these big tech mergers rather than actually abiding by the law. So there absolutely was already a question on whether or not they would continue that tirade and try and make an example out of Microsoft. And with this information here, it absolutely 100% seems like that's exactly what's happening. This is yet another political statement from the FTC as they're trying to make a name for themselves under Lina Khan's leadership. This is a gross show of power, and I think that this once again can be shown in court. I mean, you have Sony, and they're not even the company acquiring Activision Blizzard, and apparently they were visiting different regulators and talking to them about their concerns. But meanwhile, you have Microsoft, the company in question, the one with the most risk involved here, and they can't even sit down with the FTC and see if there's any resolution at all. Yeah, that's a bad look for the FTC because it makes it seem like they don't care. They always had their mind made up despite this not being a clear-cut case. I guess it is what it is, though. As I've said before, this could be good for the FTC and Sony, or it could blow up in their face, because if Microsoft wins in court, which again, they have a good case here, and it only seems to be improving with news like this, I don't know if Microsoft will be as willing to make these type of concessions if they win. It's risky for Sony and the FTC, and I'll just kind of leave it at that. Let's go take a look at the poll of the day, though, where I asked you all, do you plan on playing The Witcher 3 Next Generation Upgrade? This will be out tomorrow, so I wanted to get your all's thoughts on this, and as you can see here, the majority of you all are looking to play this upgrade. 24% of you said yes for the first time, then 33% of you said yes, you are looking to replay it, 17% of you said maybe, still undecided, and then 24% said no. So that means 57% of you all are absolutely looking to play this upgrade, whether that be for the first time or not. To me, though, that was the very interesting part of the results here, though, because 24% of you all are looking to play The Witcher 3 for the very first time. That right there, that's always the beauty of remasters, remakes, and upgrades like this. They have an opportunity to introduce these great games to more players. And in this case, for you 24%, you're absolutely playing an all-time great here. And even better with it now being 60 frames per second. For me, though, I am in the 33% here, though. I don't know if I'll necessarily play through the entire game immediately. I might try it out and see how it runs and everything, but I do intend on replaying through its entirety again eventually. This will actually be my third time because it really is that good. I got nothing on DL, though, which said in the comments that they're replaying it for the 8th time. It really is a masterpiece, though, so hopefully everybody enjoys that new upgrade tomorrow when it releases. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode. But if you like the video, don't forget to hit the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.